Hey guys, in this video, I'm giving you an inside look into one of the consultations that I did for a young detailer who has spent the last year growing his business as really the first official year that he's been in business. And oftentimes I ask if I can record these calls because I think the content will be helpful for viewers. So while no, I did not record the entire call and certain things were left out because they're more private, you guys are about to get an inside scoop of exactly what a really in-depth consultation looks like after 1 year of being in the business. But before we jump in, make sure if you have not yet received it, go below in the YouTube description box and grab my Essential Detailing Toolbox, which is the top 12 tools and products you need in your detailing business, all for under $500. These are just the staple tools and products that I suggest using. Not only do you get a PDF of all of that, but you also get a free video series that's gonna show you exactly how to use these and how not to use these. Once again, the link is in the YouTube description box below. It's completely free. Let's get into the video. Okay, so Sean, where do you want to start?
So I guess that's let me pull up a document real quick. I sort of just wanted to recap last year because I remember we talked last year and the whole philosophy around the business last year was, okay, we got it started. Let's get some fuel in the rocket and let's see if we can actually do this, right? We obviously established now we can do this. I was able to work 5, 6, 7 days a week. So now for me, this is like sort of late February last year. So this is from late February to December 31st, but we did 38,271 in and 74 out. So we're at net total of 30,000 for last year.
And that's February of 2021 to December of 2021. Okay, let's start from the top. You said that from February of 2021 to December of 2021, you were basically 38,000 gross, expenses $7,400. So we're basically at 30,000 net revenue.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's honestly, I'm really happy with it. When I was going into it, I was like, and this was before I got your class, the first one last year. So I was like, I'm gonna be ecstatic if I do over 10 grand by December.
Right.
So that just sort of attests to the strategies that we used in the last class.
Totally.
But that being said, what makes me really happy about that is that this just shows that, and most of those expenses, because I did buy a lot of the ceramic stuff in December, so a good chunk of that is ceramic stuff. But you can just keep such a low overhead in detailing.
Right.
It's nuts.
It's crazy.
And that's really been my key is, I think I've bought McGuire's APC twice.
Yeah.
Since
Exactly.
February.
Okay, incredible.
Yeah. So this year, numbers wise, I wanted to ask you, what should I be keeping track of? Like more of the fine details now. So like, should I be keeping track of how many fluid ounces of APC am I using per detail? How many fluid ounces? Should I be averaging those out?
Right. Yeah, so to take a more broad cut at this, the easiest way to, I think, keep track of the expenses you're talking about is, what would I call it? I don't even know if I have a good word for it. Let's just call it systematizing everything.
Okay.
So when it comes to,
maybe.
Yeah. We want to create like really simple systems that don't, when you get too in the details, you can sometimes miss the big picture. So in this scenario, we want to get the big picture and not get too into the details. So what we don't want to keep track of is how many fluid ounces of McGuire's all-purpose cleaner do I use per detail, blah, blah, blah. Because the expenses are such a small percentage of the revenue of the business that to get caught up in those details doesn't make sense. But
I figured.
Right. But to make this a little bit easier, a way to think about this is all of the main chemicals that you have that you use, which are the APC, degreaser, whatever, carpet cleaner, blah, blah, blah. If you can create a system where all of those are pre-mixed. So rather than mixing individual bottles, we have 5-gallon, 8-gallon dispensers that are pre-mixed per gallon of chemical I buy.
Perfect. I actually just started doing that because it was annoying me so much, like getting out there in the morning, packing up the car, and just dilute. So I ended up keeping one of the huge super clean things. I actually kept like 2 of them and just made like 6 gallons of super clean.
Right. Exactly. So that makes the most sense because then it's just fill it up pre and post jobs, and then it's not taking up the time because that actually does eat into the time. And in terms of the other expenses, the only way that I really would recommend keeping track of things at this point is what I bought, when I bought it, the price that I bought it at, and when I buy it again. Because
Okay, perfect.
the only logical way to keep track of expenses is to say, when do I buy it and when do I buy it again? And now let's take a look at those two variables over a year, and then we can see this is how much I spend on average. We're just creating averages.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, super simple.
Yep, super simple. I'm a big fan of simple systems. They seem to work the best. Okay, and then so I want to touch on the SEO really quickly too. Going off the things we learned in the ceramic class. Competition, and I am in a very rural area. I will say this, like my town, I think maybe has 5,000 people. So I do reach like a few different towns. So I'm reaching more than 5,000 people.
Right.
But whenever I do any of the SEO stuff, there's next to no competition. And like when you look up ceramic coatings so I live in Hampstead, Maryland, and I live in Carroll County. I mostly do the county just because it's such a rural area. I just do the whole county. But the only people who are ranking right now are like powder coatings. So, and I haven't started implementing the SEO stuff. I've been waiting for it to warm up just so the calls start coming in. I don't have to handle the phone call and say, but you don't have a heated garage. I don't have a heated garage. So we got to push this off March. But anyways, is there any way for me, I guess, just go through implement what's taught in the course, obviously, but is there any like further way to just exploit the fact that no one else is doing the SEO in my area?
Yeah, 100%.
Because I wasn't able to do like the customer cheat sheet almost because no one's doing it.
Yeah. So a really simple answer to that question in terms of like nobody's doing it, so there really isn't a way. There are really general keywords that would work anywhere and everywhere depending on what you're targeting. So for example, ceramic coating is the keyword, like we could call it the base keyword that all other variants are built off of. So that keyword, we don't even need to do any research to know that that's what we're targeting with the ceramic coating section of our website. And that's what the person is searching in the ceramic coating section of our website. The only other thing to do in your specific area, I can actually share my screen, is, so let me open up a new tab. Hold on. I could just go to google.com and I can type. So if I'm in Nashville, but all I want to do is go ceramic coating. And this is going to automatically give me the results for my area. And I can just click space. And like we said, this drop down is what people are actually searching in order of the search volume. Ceramic coating Nashville, ceramic coating bottle, ceramic coating. So anyway, that's the easiest way to do the quick keyword research, especially when you're in a rural town like yours. There's no point in it's so obvious what keywords you want to target. You don't need to spend any time finding them. But the other part of that is the thing that I encourage a lot of guys like yourself who are in your position, because there's actually a lot of detailers in this position where they can win only because no one else is doing it. So this is kind of a unique thing, but in the detailing space, it's actually pretty common because detailers generally are good at detailing. They're really terrible at everything else. So kind of like Charlie Munger said, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just want to make sure you're competing with a whole bunch of idiots. And luckily they're in large supply. So that's what we're doing here. We don't have to be really smart. We just want to make sure everybody else is at zero. So simplest way to do it is do all the foundational stuff in terms of things we teach in the program, obviously keywords, backlinks, all that sort of stuff. But the other things that you're going to do that, because you have the opportunity basically to get so far ahead that anybody else who comes in after would have to play so much catch up. They're just never going to catch you.
That's what I've been noticing. Like as soon as, and like I said, I've been waiting for it just to get a couple weeks of warmth, and then I'm just opening the floodgates with all the content and stuff like that. But it's like no one is doing these things. So as soon, like I said, or like you just said, as soon as the floodgates open, everyone's gonna have to play catch up. But the system is so optimized, like the catch up is gonna be hard to play.
Yeah, it's just not possible. And so when you're in that white space, really the easiest thing to do is I do all the foundational stuff that's just best practice SEO that nobody can argue with, which is
Mhm.
on-page keywords, follow backlinks, all that sort of stuff. But then the additional stuff is like the stuff we talked about in the program, which where you can implement the video portion of this. And that pushes things so far over the edge that it's just like,
Mhm.
it's almost not fair.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. People would hit me up like in the group just off comments and stuff like that. Or I'll make a post and they'll send me a message. And they're like, well, what do you, or they'll follow my Instagram or something, and I
right,
post the details of the day on my story, and they'll go,
right.
what are you doing to get all these customers? And all I say is video, share it to Facebook.
Yeah, right,
It's such low effort.
right.
But transitioning on that, how can I wrap Facebook into all this? Like all the YouTube videos that I'll be uploading, could I just, once a week share to Facebook, and then share to local group? Because that's been the biggest gold mine for me, is that because we're in it's unique, but because we're in such a rural area, everyone keeps in, like, the Facebook community is very strong because everyone's so far apart. So everyone keeps in touch through Facebook.
Right.
Um,
Totally.
would that be the best strategy? Just copy and paste YouTube videos, share them to Facebook. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question because like things are unique for your given area. So Facebook might be stronger, whatever else might be stronger.
yeah,
So
yeah,
the problem with taking just a strictly YouTube, well, actually, this isn't a problem because the YouTube videos we talk about in the program are really short. So the only
mhm,
time that's a problem, Facebook limits the amount of bandwidth a video can have. So it's got to be a really small video. So like 60
yeah,
seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I mean, I think 5 minutes might even be too much for Facebook. I'm not really sure. We could look at
yeah.
that afterwards.
That's
But
probably the range I would be in. Just the short
yeah,
30-second, maybe minute and a half videos.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, so one of the things that you might be interested in doing is every single customer that you have the Werner Auto Detailing Facebook page, and you're sending them to that because now that you have the foundation, we've got the Google My Business set up, we've got the Instagram set up, we've got YouTube's coming, you got the on-page SEO of your website. All of a sudden,
Yep.
the Facebook page can be really powerful because if we can get all you're keeping track, well, I assume, but let's say you're keeping track of all your customers' information. If you can also have them willingly go like your page and follow it, and there's you're doing certain things periodically to keep them engaged, like simple discounts, not for the sake of I need the business, but for the sake of I just want these people engaged in the page.
Yep.
um, that can obviously become a really powerful tool that just keeps people constantly seeing your stuff.
Right.
um, so yeah, the video stuff is a must do in any Facebook page for your particular position because you have all this other stuff done.
For
Um,
sure. And
and,
I tend to lean towards video anyways. I think you
yeah,
said this in the first class, major in video, um,
yeah,
minor in pictures. Just
yeah,
because, like, even myself, I don't know if you do this, but sometimes I'll just accidentally scroll on my own account watching the videos just
yeah,
because they're satisfying. But that
yeah,
just
yeah.
wouldn't happen if you're posting pictures.
Right. And that's the other thing is you want with the Facebook page, let's say you have your customers, minorly engaged in a Facebook page. The simple rule is the more points of contact that I have available to me to the customer, the better. So I have their email, I have their phone number, I have their physical address, I can message them on Facebook, I have them in a specific Facebook group. You're talking about a seriously unfair advantage.
Right. And speaking of that, we did email about this a few weeks ago, because I really like the idea of building a community
Mhm.
around the business.
Right.
And I don't know if you've noticed this, if this is applicable in your business, but it seems to be a lot of the maintenance clients are very similar. They're business owners themselves, they just share the same mindset.
Sure.
And it's not very far-fetched to say some maintenance clients would hit it off with other maintenance clients, and
Sure.
they would also like to use each other's businesses. So I thought of starting the private Warner Auto Detailing community Facebook page for only
Sure.
maintenance clients. So you have to be a maintenance client for it. Let's say you got to do 2 maintenance details, to get in, and then it's just you share your business. You can see other people's businesses. And I
Right.
wonder, sort of what you thought about that, and if that's just like,
Yeah, I think there's a few different
because
ways to
then
think about it.
I figured, like, that, because obviously a lot of maintenance clients also come from word of mouth, and
Right.
that would just be another word of mouth thing. It's like, oh, hey, I get
Totally.
my car detailed every 2 months. but there's this cool group we all talk in, and some people
Yeah,
offer discounts, and you know what I mean?
right. Two things. Number one, the easiest way to get a maintenance client is to create an offer that's really hard to refuse. So
Hmm.
if there is any additional benefit to being a maintenance client, on top of what is obviously a benefit, which is what I'm paying for, a regular detail, then all of a
Right.
sudden the value just went up in the customer's mind. So if it's, hey,
Yeah.
you also get access to our private Facebook group immediately with all of my other maintenance clients. And this is part of, by the way, customer A, this is actually how we stay really honest in our business, because our customers talk and they talk to each other. So it keeps us at the top of our game all the time, never skimping. The other thing is you're going to get access in this Facebook group to every single deal, every single special, every single whatever we always do. Nobody else gets to touch this. It's just these people in the group. And we just like to make sure that we're keeping the people who are really our best customers engaged with what they're doing, because we just want to make sure we're serving you the best we can. Ba, ba,
Right.
ba, ba. But in addition to that, just like I said, the easier you can make it to contact your customer, which is the easiest way to do that, is to expand the mediums of contact you have. So phone number, email, Facebook, all this stuff. The same is true of the easier I can make it for my customer to talk about me on a social media platform, the better everything is going to be for me. So when you have a Facebook group of things that are curated by you, which they are in, and they can just click share,
Right.
all of a sudden, like you get it, right? Because you've been doing this and you see the power of it. But oh my gosh, Sean is posting these videos of, hey, that's my car. That's my
Yeah. Yeah.
carpet.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
love that. Oh my gosh, I got to share this. I'm so glad you posted this in the group. So this before and after is crazy. Boom. It's
Yep.
just like, okay, I just created an ecosystem where all my customers are seeing their own cars worked on. They're proud of it because people are egotistical. And I don't even have to ask them to share it because the content's right there and they're
Yeah.
seeing
Exactly.
it.
Yep. Yep. And I
You
guess
get
that's
it.
sort of that's just like piggybacking off of like getting pictures into Google reviews and stuff
Right.
like that. It's just like
Right.
the most points of contact you can get with the customer touching your content is
Yeah,
also,
exactly.
yeah. Yep.
Exactly. So I will actually, one of the things that's easiest is just to complimentary. Well, how do I turn that into an adverb? I complimentarily, okay, whatever. You give them, uh, one of the easiest things to do, in addition to what we're talking about, putting them in a Facebook group, is a really creative idea. That's why I like it so much. And it's exclusive to the maintenance clients. I mean, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
super, I
Yeah.
love that idea. But the other thing that's so easy is, hey, client, here's a 20-second video and a 20-second video of before and after. Just wanted to shoot this text over to you so that you have it. You can see all the work that got done. Sometimes it's easy to forget how dirty things were in the beginning. Here's what we
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
It's actually a trust factor with the customer where they're like, oh, he got all these pictures of the before, all these pictures after, he's showing me the work. And that often leads to the same thing we're talking about in terms of posting organically.
Right. Yeah. And just to touch on that, I noticed the biggest thing in having customers trust is not literally not your detailing skill whatsoever. I
Yeah.
will admit I'm not the greatest detailer. I miss things all the time. I've had customers or maintenance clients just go, hey, hey, Sean, can you focus on this area just a little bit more next time? Not a
Mm-hmm.
huge deal at all. Um,
Right.
but it's like it's the personability part of it, and
Totally.
the communication that really keeps people coming back. I just had somebody ring me a couple of days ago. Did the husband's car in like October, and the wife just called, and I happened to remember that she had a scuff like on her mirror, and I was like, "Oh, are you
Right.
calling to get the scuff out, like, or are you just trying to get things touched up again?" And she's like, "Oh my God, you have such a good memory. I can't believe you remember that scuff."
Right.
And it was just like that instant. Even if she was maybe on the fence, it was just like instantly gets her in there.
Right.
But it's those types of things I realized, like, you don't have to be the best detailer. You have to just be a good human. You know what I mean?
Right.
And instead of just focusing on the customer as an asset for your business,
Right.
like
Totally.
you see what I'm trying to say.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I had another note in my phone.
Yeah, to that point, because I'm recording this and we might, put this on YouTube or something, but to that point, it's one of the easiest things for a detailer to do is literally just take note of something that can be brought up at a later date. I mean, you could put it in like a dating scenario. It's like, who's the girl gonna want to go out with more? The guy who's like, just kind of surface level asking for a second, third date, or the guy who on the second date is like, hey, I remember a week ago you were talking about your mom and she was kind of under the weather. Is everything okay? She recovered? It's
Right.
like, oh
Yeah,
my
yeah,
gosh, you remembered, I mean,
yeah,
come on,
yeah.
man. I got married when I was really young. Okay. So this is free relationship advice. All right. If you want a girl to marry you guys, it's what it takes. Okay. Anyway.
But yeah, and also like I'll just, because of the area that I'm in, it's like small town, but not so.
Sure.
I'll go detail someone's car, and I may pass 3 maintenance clients, on the way to their house.
Right.
But I ended up passing somebody's house, saw they had their driveway done. Like, hey, Jen, driveway looks sick. Super
Right.
glad you're able to get that done because we talked about it back in the day.
Right.
You're good. I remember the dog's name said, Hope, Lucy, and whoever are good. And that's
Right.
just like instantly, they're not going to any other detailer. Their
Right.
friends won't go to any other detailer. It doesn't matter if I mess up their car afterwards, just because of that relationship that we have,
Right.
it's game over for everybody
Right.
else.
And you don't want to take it too far. You don't want to be like, hey, Jen, you still have those red curtains, in the front of the house? It's like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
weirdo. No.
Yep.
Uh, yeah.
But yeah, great. And then so this year, I'm thinking is I guess in the philosophy in the ceramic class, is the philosophy sort of just to transition to a 90 or 100% ceramic coating paint correction business only?
Yeah, that's a great question because one of the things that you have to, it's hard to kind of articulate to people unless we're on a call like this. When you're creating an online training program or you're creating a training program of any kind, it's funny. A lot of times people think to create a good training program, there has to be a lot of stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
And what we found is that actually the best trainings that exist on planet Earth are not the things that are just stuffed full with everything. It's the things that are edited really well. They're edited down to kind of the most essential. Well, one of the problems that you face when you edit things is you can't speak to everybody in the same exact way, right?
Sure.
You're casting this really wide net and everybody kind of has an individual situation. So one of the things you're asking is, hey, Luke, I have this established detailing business that is producing revenue and I want to include ceramic coatings, but is the program designed to just make me fully go into coatings and kind of forsake all else? And the simple answer is no, even though it might kind of feel like that in the program because we're talking about ceramic coating, and how to leverage your time with ceramic coatings. Because obviously you want to continue making the revenue in your business that you currently have and growing that because it's working. So here's for yours. Let's talk about your specific situation. Right now, you're a one-man show, and let's just call it $40,000, top line revenue, $40,000 a year, and this is kind of your first year of like
And I would
year.
say like that's even just trial, year bulk
Exactly.
first time expenses. So I would even put this year, if it were a repeat of last year, probably 50 to 60.
Exactly. So that's actually a really good point that you can start a detailing business and get the right training and get the right systems. And in your first year of learning it and trial and error, you can make 40,000.
You can almost hit the mark that you would if you had everything in the bank.
Exactly. You're producing $3,000 to $4,000 a month just right off the bat. So, but outside of that, how does a person like you, who's a one-man show, who's making money and whose time is spent doing these other details, how do you add in ceramic coatings to your business profitably and not take away from this side, but also not become so all-consuming that it feels like I have to pick one? So let's think about this, because the other problem is when you're in your stage in business, the question is, well, when do I hire somebody to kind of take on this other stuff and help me continue to expand? So here's the way I try to look at things as there's this term that people learn in like a biology 101 class when they're talking about evolution, and it's called the adjacent possible. And what it means is, let's say when I'm 12 years old, I can't even think about getting married because it's like, that's so far down the road. There's so many things that have to happen. Like, I'm 12. I can't think about being married.
It's just not adjacent to your life at the time.
Exactly. It's not adjacent to my 12-year-old life. It's not right in front of me. But there are doors that are right in front of me that I'm walking through. And as I walk through more of them, there are these other doors that do become adjacent. And so when I'm 20, the adjacent possible is getting married all of a sudden. But it took 8 years for that to actually happen. It took
that walk. Yeah,
exactly. So the way I try to look, that's actually a really good concept for business, because you have to say, well, here's where I'm at right now in my business, and here's over there what I think this could be. I think I could make $100,000 a year, but I'm at 30,000 net right now. There's a $70,000 gap. What do I do in between that $70,000 gap? I'm in the 70, let's just call it the 70 gap. You're like, okay, I'm in a 70 gap. What do I do? So I'm trying to look and say, okay, Sean, what's the next most logical decision for you to make in light of the macro vision of the business? Meaning, you're not going to go start a lawn care business because that doesn't fit within the macro of the business. It could happen, and it's adjacent right there, but you're not going to go do that. So what's the adjacent thing that fits in the macro, but it's also the next step? And here's the way I would think about this. Okay, well, is there a minimum viable number of ceramic coatings that in the next 60 to 90 days, I try to put things in a 90-day time frame because it's enough time to get something to happen. 30 days is generally too short. Past 90 days is like too long, but 90 days is a good window. Is there a minimum viable number of ceramic coatings that can currently fit in my schedule that's logical, that the price point makes sense, that I can just say in 90 days, here's what I'd like to have happened. So in 90 days, I would like 3 coatings to be done. And in those 3 coatings, I would like to have content that I can use personally, content that the customer can use. I would like a review from each of these people that's viable. It has pictures, it has some sort of whatever. And I would like potentially even a video testimonial, because I always look at, in the initial stages of anything, you have to look at big momentum builders. And one of those big momentum builders is in-person video testing. We're talking about you posting videos. How can I get those first 3 people to get on video with me for 60 seconds and say, here's how it was working with Sean. Here's what the ceramic coating looks on my car. Oh my gosh, it's so banging, blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. 90-day experiment. It fits in. Got it. And that also produces $3,500 of cash flow in my business that I didn't have otherwise in that 90-day period. Because I imagine right now in your business as a one-man band, you're not detailing 12 hours a day, Monday through Sunday. That's not what's happening. Right. Okay. And that's not what needs to happen. But my point is, there is room to do what we're talking about doing. So that's step number 1. And that's, frankly, what most people don't ever do. They're trying to say, what's step number 2, 3, 4, 5? It's like, well, you can't skip step number 1. That's the adjacent.
Yeah, that's what I noticed last year too. Last year, the 90 days of consecutive posting is, I'm assuming, the equivalent of what you just explained.
Exactly.
And that 90 days of posting, that is the one thing when people like hit me up, I stress that to them the most, because I'm like, this is step 1, and you need step 1 to get to step 2. If you go to step 2, you're probably gonna have to double back to step 1, just because, you didn't pay your dues. But that just like 90 days of just hammering it in, even though you're almost mind numb of trying to think of captions or whatever at the end. So and like you said, momentum builder. So number one step is just get the ball rolling, and that's good for me again too, just because I've had most of January off up here in Maryland. We haven't had a day above freezing since like January 3rd or something like that. So I'm kind of sitting on my hands without a heated garage at the moment. But yeah, so that'll be good, and that'll, I guess, also work some of those into Facebook. So it ends up being the perfect storm, because March is a month away, so we'll be 30 days into the 90-day campaign, I guess you could call it.
Totally.
People start coming out of their winter holes. Oh, it's sunny. oh, it's a bit warm. Oh, my car is covered in salt.
Yeah.
And it falls perfectly into line with that
Right.
30 to
Right.
90 thing.
And then you think really low barrier of entry and you say, okay, well, for these first 3 people, what's
Do
the
the discount.
lowest barrier of entry that I can actually get a ceramic on their car? Well, let's just say these are people who really don't care very much about, like, they're just an average person. They don't care about paint correction. They don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
So let's prep the car and coat the car, but let's skip the middle step because customer doesn't care. I'm not going to charge them for paint correction, and it lowers that barrier of entry even more. Okay, I'm getting these first 3 done. Bop, bop, bop. Okay, got
Right.
it.
Yep.
Minimum viable product. That's what we're going after. Now, from that point, the game changes a little bit because the question after those first 3, and really what that is it gets me a little bit of momentum. It gets 3 customers who can testify on my behalf, and it gets me actually doing this particular work in the midst of my other part of my business. After that, the question becomes, what are the long-term systems? It's kind of the same thing. What are the long-term systems that they do not pay back immediately, but I can start to feed them over the next 6 months, let's say next 90 days, again to 6 months, because you're going to feed them for a while, that over time, these customers, I have here's my funnel for my detailing customers, and here's my funnel for my ceramic coating customers. It's not as wide as my detailing funnel, but it's still here and people are coming in.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I've got 2 ceramic coating jobs per month. That's about how and my income just went from $3,000 a month to $5,000 a month. And all of a sudden my annual income went from 30 grand to 60 grand. And that's how we're just slowly leveraging the time. Now, again, we could think further than that. And you say, okay, well, what's the next step? Well, again, it's that slow scale tip where you say, okay, can I profitably bring on a friend, an acquaintance, whoever, who starts to deal with this part of the business, which is the more systematized part. This is the maintenance detailing, the regular detailing. He becomes pretty good at it. And it's pretty much, A plus B equals C. It's really not that complicated.
Yep.
I'm overseeing that, but my days are spent over here. Instead of getting paid $40 for an hour for my time, I'm getting paid $120 an hour for my time. And I can begin to afford this person more and more because the cash flow has tipped in my favor. And now all of a sudden, that's kind of like what I would call the last door that begins to open up many doors.
Okay.
But it's getting to that point, obviously.
Right. So I want to ask you, so you obviously hit that sort of tip over point. I know you dabbled with employees, but obviously you've hit that point now where you could have employees, but you choose not to. So I'm just sort of interested because I got no problem taking on employees, but I also see you, and I've always just wondered, is it possible to hit that 100, maybe 150 mark just as a one-man show? But then I've sort of played with the idea, and I'm like, well, this is why he's likely doing the coaching, sort of to substitute in some of that, having to hiring help, having to get a van, not having to get a van, putting somebody in the van. You know what I mean?
Right. So I had employees in my detailing business, and then I have employees now. They just work for me in my online business. Okay. They don't work for my detailing business. So reason why that is because that's what I'm scaling. Okay. So I'm scaling the online side of the business, and the detailing is used as the engine to feed that. So that's just my particular situation over the last 4 years of building the online side and having it supplement things. It's like, hey, this is actually what I want to scale, and we're going to use this as the engine driver behind that. But to that point, to your point as well, I'm very connected with detailers in my area, actually. So like I've got a good buddy who, runs a ceramic coating shop literally right down the street from my house. Who has 3-4 employees, and they're doing $50,000 a month. And so here's how it generally works, because yes, you can hit $100,000 a year by yourself for sure. Like there's no doubt. And really it sounds, when you're not doing that, it might sound crazy, but if you just work backwards, you say, well, what's $100,000 a year? Well, $10,000 a month is $120,000 a year. So don't even need to make $10,000 a month. Let's just say 8,000, because 8,000 is a little under, it's like $96,000 a year, but let's just say $8,000 a month. All of a sudden you could say, okay, well, let's say
down to eight 1 year, 2 year coatings a month or something.
Yeah, exactly. If we want to say, well, we could just do 8 coatings a month at $1,000 minimum, well, that's a way to do it. And that's very, very, very manageable. I mean, if you think 8 coatings a month, I mean, you're talking, let's do 1 on Monday and then 1 on Thursday every week. And then
and then there's, I guess, the trade-off is there comes your time leverage. It's like, well, you have
right
5 days of the week now to start another business or
right.
So there goes the
to your point about the leaving ceramic coatings out of it, the hiring employees is a good thing. Like, to be really clear, bringing on another person, assuming they're the right person, really does create availability to grow exponentially in a way that you can't do when you're by yourself. That's for sure true. But the place where most detailers really suffer is the top of what we would call the top of the funnel. It's you have to have enough people moving in here to hire that person and to do it profitably. And so the question for every business owner is always, when do I move from my solo show to, let's say, like a contractor who works with me? And then when do I move from the contractor to a full-time employee? That's generally the ladder. And it's hard to answer that question specifically for people because their situation is unique, but this is why I talk about constantly the top of the funnel. This is why I constantly talk about marketing, because if you get that piece dialed in, then bringing on the contractor or the guy that you just pay hourly, it becomes really easy, because I'm never suffering for detailed jobs. We have a big number.
Is just always packed.
Right. And so the reason why detailers suffer so bad is because when they're a one-man show, what they should be focused on is tip of the funnel, tip of the funnel, tip of the funnel, so that you hit the tipping point a year later and you're like, I can bring somebody on. I have the luxury to do this. But instead, they're a one-man show. They make $50,000 a year, but they're not working on the top of the funnel. So they just keep making $50,000 a year. They're not really growing. So really where you're at, the way I see this is, and this could be not the case, it kind of depends, but the way I see it for you is, if you did have a garage, let's say, or a stationary place to detail, would that increase your profitability immediately? Would that create space where you could see more customers?
I don't think so.
Okay, so that's a great answer.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, like, I'm able to work out of my garage here, but it's like, for the year, 90 to 95% of my business was mobile.
Right. Okay. So yeah. Perfect answer to the question. All right. Literally perfect. And again, most people don't have those kind of answers. It's actually kind of sad. They're like, well, I don't really know. It's like, well, you ought to know what's going to affect the bottom line profitability of your business if you're going to be running the business. So, yeah. Okay.
And, actually, just sorry to cut you off.
No, go.
If it would actually be, it would be silly for me to go to a stationary location and not go mobile. Like, that would actually be stupid for me to shut down the mobile services and
exactly.
And go stationary. So yeah. Yep.
There you go.
So, yeah, does not make sense.
Right. So the next question I have is, okay, how's the top of the funnel? It's probably still growing, which is perfect, and you're doing it really well. But what I would be looking to beginning in 2022 in your particular position, which is a great position to be in because most people don't ever actually get to this point. It's the balance between, I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse. I'm not just trying to bring somebody on right this second. But my question to you is, what does it look like in the next 90 to 120 days to say, okay, I would like to implement on a small scale ceramic coatings, which looks
Mhm.
like what we kind of just talked about. And at the same time as that's happening, because that's so low barrier of entry and it's really easy to do, can I imagine a world where I've got somebody with me once a week, super easy, like not anything crazy, one time per week, that begins to get familiar with my business? Because he's only one time a week, I'm not paying him a significant portion of the revenue because I don't have a significant revenue right this second, but I can afford to do this right here based on my position in life, my expenses in life, and the revenue of my business, even though it's in the beginning stages. I can afford to do this really, to allocate this really small percentage over here. And here's this person who'd be interested in doing that. And over the next 90 to 120 days, as we implement those kind of top of the funnel strategies that we're talking about, that we haven't gone into a lot of detail here, but you already know what they are.
Yeah, yeah.
All of a sudden, I find myself 120 days later, this person is with me twice a week. He's really familiar with what we do, and he could do it alone apart from my overseeing, but I'm still overseeing him because I'm the owner of the business.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm 6, 8, 10 ceramic coatings later. I'm still building up the top of the funnel with my ceramic coatings,
Hmm.
but you see how I'm just
Yeah,
one
it's like you're
rung.
sort of opening the coding funnel and not necessarily closing the detailing funnel,
Yes,
but the
yes,
let's just say the detailing funnel is as wide open as we want it.
definitely.
We'll put the employee under the funnel, catching everyone falling through the funnel, and that leaves me, Sean, the owner, to work on opening the ceramic funnel. So that way,
Definitely.
7 months from now, we have equidistant or equally open
Yeah, yeah,
funnels for both coatings and detailing.
right,
I'm the one majorly doing the coating, some detailing.
right.
Other guys doing mostly detailing.
So this is why it's so important to know these top of the funnel strategies, because the whole point of this is not to say, okay, I, Sean, am going to go out and work twice as hard to get more ceramic coatings and maintain this part of my business. The
Yeah.
whole point is to say, I might have 3 months where I'm putting in a few more hours than I am right this second. But the
Mhm.
goal is after that 3 months is over, I'm tip of the funnel, tip of the funnel, tip of the funnel, so that now this begins to work without me feeding it, feeding it, feeding it, feeding it, feeding
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
the
Because
whole point.
the end goal is honestly for me to just leverage the time because this year, yeah, it was great. It was fun. Doing the mom cars gets old really quickly.
Yep.
And like you preach, you cannot build a business off of it. You could be kind of profitable if you take the $400 details every day.
Right.
We're gonna come home and it's just not gonna be fun. Um,
Right. Right.
so yeah,
Exactly.
so that this allows that leverage of time. So,
Right.
and that's
Exactly.
pretty much the end goal. And then the more time I have leverage, the more time there is to work on opening up funnels.
Right. Because what a mistake that a lot of people make is when you're talking about these kind of things, you can talk to people who are way further along, and it's almost discouraging because they're like, well, in order to scale your business, you're going to have to get yourself out of the business and get other people working for you and all that. All of that is true. Like I said, I have people who work for me now. I pay them exuberant amounts of money to run the show,
Right.
but you can't just jump to that all of a sudden. So there
Hmm.
has to be these intermediary steps, just like I
Yeah.
have and had. And so that's what we're talking about here. It's like, yeah, that's right. To scale the business and to get to 50,000 and 75,000 and 100,000, and then way beyond 100,000, you're going to have to change some things and scale and do some things differently. But it takes one rung at a time to implement
Right.
those things.
That like adjacency principle. It's like,
Exactly.
well, 70K really isn't adjacent to 30K, but 70K
Exactly.
is pretty adjacent to 50. And I guess you could expand off that and say sort of the whatever's working for you on those rungs will sort of lead you into that next rung or to whatever's adjacent. So whatever's
Totally.
working now at 30,000 as we try to boost it to 50 to 60 is going to just slightly change as we hit 60 and then we aim for 80 to 90 to 100.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And there are certain periods of time where it takes dramatic change in order to continue going up, because as you go up linearly, people don't think about it like this, but in the beginning of stages of business, you move up linearly,
Mhm.
10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000. you hit a point where it's like the point of scale.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's
really
like,
a crossover point.
exactly. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I cannot continue moving up linearly. I must move up exponentially. So I have to go from 100,000. I can't go from 100,000 to 200,000 doing what I'm doing, but I can go from 100,000 to 600,000 doing this. And it's a
Right.
totally new thing. So there are times for that, but from 30,000 to 60,000, that's not the time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So there we go. If I'm gonna summarize sort of the plan,
Sure.
coatings for 60 to 90 days ish. Doesn't have to be anything crazy with paint correction or anything like that. Start opening the ceramic coating funnel, which is perfect because springtime's coming. So as soon as warmer days hit, boom, 30, 60 days start, open the funnel. Then keep in the back mind, we're looking for somebody maybe to get on, help me out with details, stick around once or twice a week. And then hopefully by, let's call it summertime or like mid-spring, hopefully have someone who's able to complete a full detail, no coding, no nothing like that, but a full detail they're able to complete on their own. And then this allows me to back off from the detailing, go over to the coatings, keep churning out everything that's taught in the class, and then that allows the funnel to open more after I have this other person working for me. And then hopefully, let's call it Q3 this year, I am 90% coatings. The employee is 100% detailing. This way we have both funnels.
Right. And
sound
that's
about right.
perfectly put, linear A, B, C, D. It'll probably be more like this, like you're going from this point to this point. It's normally not a straight line. It's more like,
Yep.
okay. And you arrive
Yeah.
there and it's a little bit different, but that's exactly right. And the biggest thing about what you just said is the philosophy behind that. Even if it is not a straight line, the macro philosophy of that is exactly how you want to be operating, because you say, okay, I need to be honest about where I'm at in business right now. Okay, rather than being overwhelmed and saying, how am I going to get to 75,000 or how am I going to get to 6 coatings a month? Instead of going down that rabbit hole, which doesn't help anybody, we just say, okay,
But yeah, it's
what,
like
what could I do?
2 coatings this month or
That's
something
right.
like that.
Could I get 3 coatings done in the next 90 days? Does that feel possible? Yeah. Okay, great. That's better than 0 coatings in the next 90 days. And what people don't understand about the world is that if you stay at 0, you actually will begin to move backwards. So even 1 step forward is, even over like an elongated period of time, that is actually still better than a neutral position, because neutral over time, when you add 0 plus time, you don't actually net out at 0. You
I
would
mean,
net out
hey,
below
the
0.
zero compounded is 0.
Yeah, that's right. So
0
it's
compounded is
like,
0. So
yeah, exactly. So that's good. I think this is a good, very good conversation. And how old are you, by the way?
21,
Okay.
turning 22
So there you go.
in July. Yeah.
So you're 21, okay? And what most people who are 21 don't understand is the $30,000 that you made this past 8 months, basically, of working. That, when you do that when you're 20, there is a nature of compounding that begins to happen. It's really hard to explain to people until you experience it, where it's like, oh my gosh, I was making $30,000 at 20 and now I'm 25 and I'm making $230,000, and I didn't even work that hard to do that. All I did was I started early.
Right. And
I
that was sort of my whole starting philosophy. It's like, okay, let's start early. That way there's no rush, because it would be great to push the detailing business to 100,000 in the second year. But at the second time, let's be logical and realize that I'm 21, and yes, it would be great. It would be great to earn $100,000 at 21, but do I have to be? And you know,
by the way,
it's like let's sacrifice the future income and let's take it slow now. That way, it's a guarantee almost.
Yes.
5-10 years from now.
It's funny because like young people, I'm young, but young people, like let's say 15 years old to like 25 years old,
Mhm.
nowadays it's like they think I need to be 20 years old making $100,000 a year. And
Yeah.
part of the reason is because Instagram, it looks like every other 20-year-old is making $100,000 a year.
Yep.
And I was literally with a guy this morning who owns like 10 or 12 different jets. They charter them out to different people.
Oh,
And he was like, I kid you not, there are people like 19-year-olds who come to our office and they say, hey, I'll pay you $1,000 to let me take pictures in your jet.
in the jet.
And I don't want to fly. I just want to take pictures. It'll take us an hour. It's going to be for Instagram, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it just blows my mind.
Yeah, it's
I'm
crazy.
like,
I've seen there's
it's
like this is,
fake.
you may have seen it. It's like a viral video of this dude, like, I don't know, it's like a set for a movie, and then inside
Yeah.
it's a plane, and there's a dude with, holding a glass of bourbon or something like that. And then
Yeah.
he walks out just into the broad daylight, and it's like, yeah.
Like, what? I mean, literally, it's crazy. But like, dude, there's so much pressure on young people to achieve these things. And number one, you must ask yourself, is success long term for me really going to be defined as my bank account? Because I can tell you what, 70 years old with no family and friends
Yeah.
who despise you, that isn't success. That's
Yeah,
like being
exactly.
the king and your kingdom is hell. It's like
Yeah.
ruling over hell is actually not great, even though you're the ruler.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's
But
something
if
to
you
think
if
about.
you did if like money is one of your metrics, which it is for most people,
Sure,
um,
sure.
it's
Not
like,
that it has no
why?
place, because it is a
Right,
metric to
right.
you.
It's like in terms of, I guess, where what how I think about it. It's like, why would you jeopardize potentially making 100,000 plus by rushing it? So I could, yes, completely could make 100,000 this year. Might be rushing it, and I might sacrifice, the rest of the growth. I could burn
Right.
out if I wanted to make a hundred
Right, because
thousand.
the question is always about sustainability. It's
Exactly.
like
Yeah. So
I could
it's like
just grind
why?
myself into the ground, but can I do
Yeah,
that
it's like,
again?
why don't you delay that gratification a little bit, and that way, instead of making 100,000 at 21, at
Right.
30, you're making 600,000 every 6 months. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
And you
you're
don't have
making
to
what
work
you wanted
8
to
hours
make
a
in a
day.
year, you're making that in 2, 3 months. It's like, why don't
Right.
you just put it off? And one, I don't need the money right now. My expenses
Right.
are low. I need food, rent, and pay for my car. I
Right.
don't need anything
Totally.
else.
Totally. Totally.
But
Okay,
yeah,
Sean,
perfect.
listen, thank you so much for the time. I hope this was helpful. I know we connect probably about once every 6 months.
Yeah,
I'm about to have to jump on another meeting here. I'm almost on the hour. Um, but listen, uh, have an incredible rest of the day. Keep reaching
yeah,
out
you as
and
well. Thank you again. Thank you for your time as always. And
of
I'm
course,
sure we'll probably touch base when it's warmer, and both of us will hopefully
yes.
be in short sleeves.
Yes,
Yes,
please, man. You have it
perfect.
worse than I
Yeah,
do
dude,
up
I'm sick
north.
of it. Yeah, man. I will keep in touch. Maybe we'll keep in touch through email or whatever. But yeah, I'll see you in a few months. Again here on Zoom probably.
Awesome. All right, Sean. See you later, buddy.
Perfect. Thanks, man. See ya.
All right, guys, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, the Essential Detailing Toolbox, the top 12 tools and products that you need to start your business for under $500 is below in the YouTube description box. Grab that before you leave. Thank you so much for watching. And as always from Luke here at Wilson Auto Detailing, keep working hard, and I'll see you in the next video.